After 7 years of marriage, she destroyed my confidence. But what I discovered changed everything. At 38, I believed I understood the sacred geometry of marriage. 7 years with Catherine had taught me that love wasn't just passion and butterflies, it was the quiet rhythm of two lives intertwined, the unspoken understanding that comes from truly knowing another soul. I was a high school English teacher, she worked as a marketing coordinator at a local firm, and we had built what I thought was an unshakable foundation of trust and intimacy. But on that humid Tuesday evening in August, as we stood in our modest suburban kitchen in Phoenix, she would utter words that would completely demolish everything I believed about our relationship, about myself, and about the very nature of human cruelty. The day had been exhausting. Summer school sessions at Roosevelt High always drained me more than the regular academic year, and I'd spent the afternoon helping struggling seniors understand the complexities of Shakespeare's betrayal themes in Othello. The irony wasn't lost on me later. I came home to find our laundry basket overflowing, something I'd promised to tackle the night before, but had forgotten in my post-grading stupor. Catherine stood by the kitchen island, her auburn hair pulled back in that tight ponytail she wore when stress was building behind her green eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice carrying that particular edge I'd learned to recognize over the years, "you said you'd fold the clothes yesterday." It was such a simple statement, so mundane, yet I could feel the weight of accumulated frustrations hanging in the air between us like a gathering storm. I was bone-tired, my mind still swimming with lesson plans and the endless stack of essays waiting for my red pen, but I knew that wasn't an excuse she wanted to hear. "You're absolutely right, babe," I said, loosening my tie and trying to summon the energy for domestic responsibility. "I'll get to it right after dinner. This summer session is just killing me, and I completely spaced on it." I moved toward her, hoping to bridge the gap with a kiss on her cheek, but she stepped back, her arms crossing over her chest in that defensive posture that had become far too familiar in recent months. What happened next was like watching a controlled demolition of everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd married. "It's not just the laundry, Michael," she began, her voice gaining momentum like a train picking up speed. "It's everything. You come home exhausted, you barely talk to me anymore, you forget our plans, you don't take initiative with anything around here. When was the last time you actually planned a date for us? When was the last time you surprised me with anything?" Each word felt like a small blade finding its mark. I stood there, still in my work clothes, watching my wife transform before my eyes from the woman who used to greet me with genuine warmth to someone who seemed to be cataloging every one of my failures as a husband. "Catherine, I know I've been distracted with work, but that doesn't mean I don't care about us. Summer school is temporary, you know that. In 3 weeks, I'll have more time and energy for." "For what?" she interrupted, her voice rising to a pitch I'd rarely heard before. "For me to continue feeling like I'm married to a ghost? For you to continue going through the motions while I feel completely invisible." The kitchen seemed to shrink around us, the familiar space where we'd shared thousands of meals and conversations now feeling like a battleground where our marriage was being dissected piece by piece. I tried to find words that would de-escalate the situation, some bridge back to the love I knew still existed between us. "Sweetheart, you're not invisible to me. You're the most important thing in my life. If I've been making you feel neglected, then let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to fix this." But even as I spoke, I could see in her eyes that she was already past the point of reasonable discussion, past the place where my words could reach her. That's when she delivered the blow that would echo in my mind for months to come. "Maybe the problem is that you're just not good in bed, Michael." The words hung in the air like poison gas, seeping into every corner of the room, contaminating everything they touched. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending that our physical relationship is satisfying when it's just boring, predictable, lifeless." The world tilted on its axis. 7 years of intimacy, of vulnerable moments where we'd explored each other's bodies and souls, reduced to a cruel verdict delivered with surgical precision. I felt something fundamental crack inside my chest, not just my heart, but my very sense of self as a man, as a lover, as someone worthy of desire. My hands began to shake, and I gripped the kitchen counter to steady myself, trying to process what she'd just said. "Catherine," I whispered, my voice barely audible. That's not fair. That's not even true. We've always been good together. You've told me so many times how much you loved our connection. Why would you say something like that?" The desperation in my own voice horrified me, but I couldn't stop myself from seeking some explanation that would make sense of this character assassination. Her lips curved into something that might have been a smile but felt more like a sneer. "Maybe I was just being nice, Michael. Maybe I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But honestly, I'm tired of protecting your ego when I'm the one suffering in silence." Each word was carefully chosen for maximum damage, like she'd been rehearsing this speech in her mind for weeks or months. Before I could formulate any response to this devastating attack on the most intimate aspect of our relationship, I heard the soft clearing of a throat from the doorway. We both turned to see Sophia, Catherine's closest friend since college, standing there with a bottle of wine in her hands and an expression of unmistakable shock on her face. She'd been supposed to join us for dinner, and in our escalating argument, we'd completely forgotten she was coming. "I'm sorry," Sophia said quietly, her dark eyes moving between Catherine and me. "I used my key because I heard raised voices and I was worried. But I couldn't help overhearing what just happened, and I can't. I can't stay quiet about this." She stepped fully into the kitchen, setting the wine down on the counter with more force than necessary. "Catherine, what you just said to Michael isn't just cruel, it's completely dishonest." The color drained from Catherine's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, and for the first time in our entire argument, she seemed to have no ready words. "Sophia, you don't understand the context. You don't know what it's like to live with someone who—" "Who what?" Sophia interrupted, her voice gaining strength and conviction with each word. "Who loves you completely? Who works his ass off to provide for you? Who talks about you like you're the most amazing woman in the world?" She looked directly at me, her expression soft with sympathy before hardening again as she turned back to Catherine. "Because that's what Michael does, Catherine. Every time we talk, every time we hang out, he can't stop mentioning how proud he is of you, how attracted he is to you, how grateful he is to have you in his life." I felt like I was watching the scene unfold from outside my own body. My wife's best friend was defending me against accusations that felt like they'd come from nowhere, revealing a version of myself that Catherine apparently couldn't see anymore. "Sophia, please don't," Catherine said, but her voice had lost all its earlier venom, replaced by something that sounded almost like panic. "No, I won't be quiet," Sophia continued, stepping closer to Catherine with the intensity of someone who'd been holding back their true feelings for too long. "And you want to know why I can't stay quiet? Because you're lying to him. You're lying about something so personal, so important, just to hurt him. I've been your friend for 15 years, Catherine. I've heard you talk about your sex life. I've heard you brag about how incredible Michael is, how satisfied you are, how lucky you feel to have found someone who actually cares about your pleasure." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears, could feel the blood rushing to my face as the implications of Sophia's words sank in. Catherine had talked positively about our intimacy to her friends. The very thing she just used to devastate me had once been a source of pride for her, something worth bragging about. "You're lying," Catherine whispered, but her voice carried no conviction, only desperation. Sophia shook her head sadly. "3 months ago at Rachel's birthday party, you spent 20 minutes telling me and Jessica how amazing Michael was in bed. You said he was the first man who'd ever made you feel truly desired, truly satisfied. You said you'd never experienced anything like the connection you two had." She paused, letting the weight of this revelation settle over all of us. "So don't you dare try to destroy his confidence just because you're feeling guilty about something else." The word guilty hit the room like a lightning strike. I saw Catherine's entire body tense, saw her eyes dart toward the door like a trapped animal looking for escape. "Guilty about what?" I asked, my voice hoarse with the effort of speaking through the chaos of emotions swirling inside me. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, as if steeling herself for what she was about to reveal. When she opened them again, they were filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. Michael, I'm so sorry you're finding out this way. But Catherine has been texting another man for weeks, maybe months. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I have screenshots. I wasn't going to get involved, but after hearing her try to destroy you like that, the world stopped spinning. Everything went silent except for the sound of my own breathing, which had become shallow and rapid. I turned to look at Catherine, searching her face for some sign that this was all a terrible misunderstanding, that there was some innocent explanation for what Sophia was suggesting. Instead, I saw confirmation written in every line of her expression. The guilt, the panic, the way she couldn't meet my eyes. Catherine, I said, and her name felt foreign on my tongue like I was speaking to a stranger. Is it true? She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. It's not what you think, Michael. It's just texting. It's harmless. But even as she spoke, I could see that she knew how hollow those words sounded, how inadequate they were in the face of what she'd done. Just texting? Sophia's voice was sharp with disbelief. Catherine, you've been sending him photos. You've been talking about meeting up. You've been telling him things about your marriage, intimate things that should be between you and Michael. She looked at me with genuine compassion. I'm showing you this because you deserve to know the truth. As Sophia held out her phone, I saw messages that felt like physical blows to my chest. Catherine talking to some man named Derek about how unappreciated she felt, how she needed someone who understood her, how she fantasized about what it would be like to be with someone who really saw her. There were photos, not explicit, but intimate enough that their intent was unmistakable. Flirtatious selfies, pictures of her in lingerie that I recognized from our own bedroom. How long? I asked, my voice barely audible. Catherine's tears started then, but they felt manipulative rather than genuine, like she was crying because she'd been caught rather than because she was sorry. 2 months, she whispered, maybe a little more. But Michael, I swear it never went beyond texting. I never met him in person. I never cheated physically. The absurdity of that distinction hit me like a slap. Never cheated physically? I repeated, my voice growing stronger with anger. You've been sharing our most intimate problems with another man. You've been sending him photos of yourself in our bedroom. You've been building an emotional relationship with someone else while systematically tearing down your relationship with me. And tonight, you tried to destroy my confidence as a man, as your lover, to cover up your own betrayal. The full scope of what she'd done was becoming clear to me now, and with that clarity came a rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Not just anger at the betrayal itself, but at the calculated cruelty of making me feel inadequate to hide her own guilt. You made me feel like I was failing you as a husband, like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't desirable, all while you were giving your attention and your desire to someone else. It wasn't like that, Catherine said, but her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. I was confused. I was feeling disconnected from you, and he was someone who listened. Listened? I could barely contain the fury building inside me. I'm your husband, Catherine. I've been here every single day, ready to listen, ready to work on whatever problems we were having. But instead of talking to me, you found someone else to confide in. Instead of working on our marriage, you started building something with another man. And then you had the audacity to blame me for the distance you created. Sophia stepped closer to me, her presence a steadying force in the emotional hurricane. Michael, I know this is devastating, and I'm sorry I had to be the one to tell you. But you need to know that none of this is your fault. Catherine has been lying to you and to herself about what she's been doing. I looked at my wife, though that word was starting to feel meaningless, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd loved, trusted, built a life with had been systematically dismantling our relationship while making me feel like I was the problem. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. 7 years, I said, more to myself than to either of them. 7 years I've loved you, trusted you, been faithful to you. I've worked every day to be a good husband, to provide for us, to make you happy. And this is how you repay that? By making me feel worthless while you give your attention to another man? Catherine reached toward me, but I stepped back instinctively. Her touch, which had once been a source of comfort and desire, now felt like a violation. Michael, please. I know I made mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. This thing with Derek, it doesn't mean anything. It was just, it was just a fantasy. A fantasy that you chose over working on your marriage, I said. A fantasy that you fed and nurtured while letting our relationship starve. A fantasy that you used to justify emotionally abusing me tonight. The clarity was building inside me now, burning away the confusion and self-doubt she'd tried to plant in my mind. Sophia nodded supportively. That's exactly what it is, Michael. She created a problem in your marriage by withdrawing from you, then blamed you for the very distance she created. It's manipulation, pure and simple. The truth of that statement hit me with the force of revelation. Catherine hadn't just betrayed me with another man. She'd gaslighted me into believing that our problems were my fault, that I was inadequate, that I deserved her withdrawal and cruelty. The psychological manipulation was almost worse than the emotional affair itself. You know what the most devastating part is? I said, my voice steady now despite the emotional earthquake happening inside me. It's not just that you were unfaithful. It's that you made me hate myself in the process. You made me question everything about who I am as a man, as a husband, as a lover. You tried to destroy my self-worth to protect your own guilt. Catherine was sobbing now, but I felt nothing but emptiness where my compassion for her used to be. I'm sorry, she kept repeating, but the words meant nothing. Sorry was what you said when you accidentally broke something valuable. This was intentional, calculated destruction of the most sacred trust between two people. Sorry doesn't fix this, Catherine, I said, surprising myself with how calm my voice sounded. Sorry doesn't undo months of lies. Sorry doesn't heal the damage you've done to my ability to trust. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you chose to build intimacy with another man while systematically destroying the intimacy in our marriage. I looked around our kitchen at the life we'd built together and felt nothing but emptiness. The photos on the refrigerator, the coffee cups we'd shared countless mornings, the familiar space where we'd planned our future, all of it felt like artifacts from a museum of a relationship that had never been as real as I believed. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Tonight. I need space to think, to process what you've done, to figure out what comes next. Michael, please, Catherine begged. Don't make any permanent decisions when you're angry. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll end things with Derek completely. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. But I was already shaking my head. You had months to make different choices, Catherine. You had countless opportunities to talk to me about whatever was bothering you, to work on our marriage instead of sabotaging it. You chose deception. You chose cruelty. You chose another man. Those aren't mistakes you stumble into. They're deliberate decisions that reveal who you really are. Sophia squeezed my shoulder gently. Michael, I know this is incredibly painful, but you're handling this with more grace than most people would. You deserve so much better than what she's put you through. As Catherine gathered some clothes and essentials, moving through our home like a ghost haunting the ruins of our relationship, I felt something unexpected stirring beneath the devastation, relief. For months, I'd been trying to figure out what was wrong with me, why I couldn't seem to make Catherine happy, why our connection felt strained. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't about my inadequacy as a husband or lover. It was about her choice to invest her emotional energy elsewhere while making me the scapegoat for the problems she'd created. After Catherine left, Sophia stayed for a while, helping me process the emotional whiplash of the evening. You know, she said as we sat in the living room that suddenly felt too large and too empty, I've been watching this unfold for weeks, and I kept hoping she'd come to her senses and end whatever was happening with this other guy. But when I heard her attack you the way she did tonight, when I heard her try to destroy your confidence to cover her own guilt, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Thank you, I said, and I meant it more deeply than I'd ever meant those words before. I don't know how long I would have gone on blaming myself, thinking I was the problem. You saved me from that. You're a good man, Michael, she said. Catherine lost sight of that somehow, but that's her failing, not yours. Any woman would be lucky to have someone who loves as deeply and faithfully as you do. After Sophia left, I sat alone in my kitchen now, I supposed, and tried to make sense of the ruins of my marriage. The betrayal hurt, but what hurt even more was the systematic psychological abuse that had accompanied it. Catherine hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd tried to make me complicit in my own emotional destruction. But sitting there in the quiet aftermath of the worst day of my marriage, I also felt something I hadn't experienced in months: self-respect returning. The voice in my head that had been whispering about my inadequacies, my failures as a husband, my shortcomings as a lover, that voice was finally quiet. It had never been my voice at all. It had been Catherine's guilt and manipulation disguised as my own self-doubt. Over the following days, as lawyers were consulted and divorce papers were filed, I began to understand the full scope of what I'd escaped. Catherine's betrayal had been devastating, but her attempt to destroy my sense of self-worth had been even worse. She tried to make me believe that her cruelty was justified, that her wandering attention was my fault, that I deserved to be diminished and dismissed. The divorce proceedings revealed even more lies, more instances of financial and emotional deception that painted a picture of someone I'd never really known at all. But with each revelation, instead of feeling more devastated, I felt more liberated. The woman I'd mourned losing had never really existed. She'd been a carefully constructed facade hiding someone capable of calculated cruelty. 6 months later, as I signed the final papers that officially ended our marriage, I felt nothing but gratitude for Sophia's courage in speaking the truth that night in our kitchen. Without her intervention, I might have spent years believing Catherine's version of reality, years accepting responsibility for problems I hadn't created, years doubting my own worth as a partner and as a man. The end of my marriage taught me something invaluable about the nature of betrayal. It's not just about the unfaithfulness itself, but about the lies that surround it, the manipulation that enables it, and the psychological warfare that protects it. Catherine hadn't just cheated on me, she'd tried to rewire my understanding of myself to justify her actions. But truth has a way of surfacing, and when it does, it doesn't just reveal the deception, it also reveals your own strength, your own worth, your own capacity to survive and rebuild. The marriage I thought I'd lost had been built on lies anyway. What I found in its wreckage was something much more valuable: my own unshakable knowledge of who I really am and what I truly deserve in love.